We talked about car landing on a house, actually, in California recently. You guys ever seen damage to cars like that have run into buildings or houses or anything like that?
Yeah, they usually don't look too good afterwards. We've had a couple that have driven through houses. We had one a couple years ago during a police chase, drove through the front of a porch and then into the house.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So
what incurred the most damage, the car or the house in that situation?
They were both pretty rough. Yeah,
I can imagine.
Do you have a suggestion if you are to drive through a house?
Don't drive through that house.
I didn't know if there was a specific car.
Pick a car or a pole or something. Not
or
the house.
maybe a room. Maybe go living room instead of kitchen. Maybe if you're going to do it that way. I don't know.
Yeah, kitchen's probably a little pricier.
Yeah, exactly. Numbers again to reach us if you have a question about your car: 6240870 or the text line at 6230373.
Well, let's start off with a question coming in from one of our listeners, and has to do with, obviously, we're in the winter season, but they're asking, is there a temperature, what is the temperature that windshield washer fluid or gasoline, either one of those two fluids, could freeze or would freeze?
Yeah, in Utica this year, we don't have to worry about
right.
either.
Good.
But windshield washer fluid, there's usually a summer fluid and there's winter fluid. I suggest that people use winter fluid year-round because in the fall, you don't know when you're going to get a cold night, and if it freezes, it'll break the reservoir tank and maybe the lines. So it's always good to use a winter blend. The winter blend's usually good to -20, and the summer blend usually freezes around 20 degrees. So I definitely recommend using winter year-round. Maybe in the beginning of summer, you could put a gallon of summer blend.
And it doesn't make a difference for the windshield washer fluid, the pump or anything like that.
No,
It's not
there's no effect really, and they both work. One's just as good as the other. About the fuel, also. For regular fuel, not a diesel, you got to be -40, -50 degrees, because up here during the winter they put an additive in all of our fuels. They put them in the diesel and they put them in the regular gas for your car, and you're not going to have any problem with fuel freezing. The only thing that people have problems with is when they have some water or moisture in the tank. That will freeze. You have to use some dry gas, or there's water removers that you can use once a year to keep that dry.
Condensation builds up in the lines or something like that.
Condensation in the tanks, especially people that don't keep the fuel full all the time. They'll get some condensation, and that can freeze. But the fuel itself, not around here. You won't really see that. So, diesel fuel is it can gel up.
I know a lot of people will complain about that.
Yep, and they should use an additive when it's going to be below 10 degrees out. I would use an additive. But the regular right out of the pump up here in the Northeast, they start putting a blend in the early fall, so you're usually good down to 10 degrees with diesel fuel.
Good. Gas prices have been pretty good around here recently, and maybe you're going to continue for a while. How about the different grades of gasoline that you see, the options at the pump? Is it important to choose among those? Or
it's important on some vehicles, yes. I definitely wouldn't recommend buying anything less than 87, but your average vehicle, 87 is great for. Then you get some of the German models and some of the turbo models and some of the performance stuff that you really need the high test in. And the high test in those vehicles pays for itself anyway, just a fuel mileage difference.
Oh, okay.
So it's pretty equal. If you buy high test for, say, some of these Acuras or Lexuses, the fuel mileage increase will pay for the difference in fuel.
I didn't realize there was a fuel mileage. I thought it was just maybe
not in all cars.
Okay.
Yeah, so don't jump to the conclusion you think you're going to get better fuel mileage with the everyday economy car just because you put high test in it. Some of them actually will be less efficient.
Yeah,
it depends on the vehicle.
And Matt makes a point. I owned an Acura, and they tell you to use a grade that's above a certain year, and I believe it was 90 or 91 for that specific reason. And I could notice there was times there, I forgot I put in the old test, the 87, and I could feel the performance difference in the car.
Yeah, a little loss of power.
Yeah, a little loss of power, but as you mentioned, the price and the mileage, they equal out. So.
Yep, it equals out in the long run.
6240870 if you want to talk to Matt Nimey about your car, 6240870, our phone line, or you could text at the Talk of the Town, 6230373.
I know we have some other questions to get to, but maybe one more with the gas. I know folks always have questions with the ethanol, the 10% ethanol. Is it okay to have it in there? Some people like to go to the pumps that don't have the ethanol, and it doesn't really matter?
If your car is designed to be an ethanol fuel vehicle, it's actually more fuel efficient with ethanol fuel. Okay. So if you did some research on your specific car, now this doesn't go for all cars. That's why the automotive field's very, very different depending on each vehicle. So if your car is designed to run ethanol fuel, it actually creates more horsepower and better fuel mileage with ethanol fuel than it does the opposite. So it all depends on the vehicle. There's no right answer or wrong answer.
Oh, that's
there.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
How do you know when your car needs an alignment, by the way? I sometimes will take my hands off the wheel as a test. Is that a good idea? I know you don't want to do it for long periods of time. But
After you run into a pylon or something like that?
Exactly.
Yeah, don't try it on a turn.
Yeah.
No, that is a good test. If you get in the center of the road, you got to remember the road's crowned, so your car's supposed to sort of pull to the right if you're in the right-hand lane going down the road. But if you get in the middle of the road where the road's level and you can continue on straight without holding the steering wheel, then your alignment's in pretty good shape. But that's not always the best test. I recommend an alignment every 2 years. If you go to your repair shop and you're doing your tire rotations, oil changes, they should see if your alignment's good or not just by looking at the tires. If all the tread are level with one another, then that's a good sign that your alignment's in good shape. But every 2 years is usually safe. Around here, the roads are pretty rough. If you're down in Florida, a lot less common to have an alignment issue. Up here is, the suspensions get beat up. Yeah. These are rough roads. It's not easy. Easy on the car.
Talked about the Utica roads last week on the show and how many of them are in desperate need of repair.
I'm sure Matt sees many.
Yeah,
of those
the weather up
in.
here doesn't help. It's tough on everything.
Yeah, weather's about to change. Folks are starting to look into the idea of maybe purchasing a new vehicle, some tax return money coming back, and we were talking a little bit off the air before the difference of actually purchasing the vehicle or leasing a vehicle, and I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, we get a lot of questions about this, and a lot of customers come in and even if they're not looking to buy from us, if they're our repair customers and they ask. And, it's a topic that has really been advertised in the United States. Leasing. And it's a car payment. I'm always going to have a car payment, so on and so forth. Well, it's not the truth. You don't always need a car payment. Leasing is not a priority that most people should look at. It's not an option most people should look at. It's an option for some people, and if your accountant tells you need a lease because you need the write-off, or you need a lease because of there's certain circumstances.
Maybe a business vehicle or something like that.
Yeah, the business, if your travel's very limited and you need a status quo vehicle, if you work in a job that depends on the vehicle that you need to drive represents what you're selling, so on and so forth, then you don't want to drive something that's 4 or 5 years old or 3 years old. You need to be in the group that you're advertising with. Well, then the leasing might be an option for you to be able to afford that fancier vehicle for a smaller payment. But if you look at a 5-year spread or 6-year spread of owning a car, there's no comparison in the dollar amount which you depreciate or lose by owning the car. We actually have a video that we're posting on YouTube showing exact dollar amounts. We just took a common car, a Honda Civic, for example, and we did a lease payments, what the lease costs to own for 5 years. Even though it's only 36 or 39-month lease, and then you get another one, or to purchase. And we're talking about brand new or used. It doesn't matter. Really, buying is still your best option if you're buying new or leasing new.
And at the end of the day, you actually have something physical.
You own a car. You have equity in the car. You're paying on something that you can control. It's your piece of equipment afterwards. And when you go to trade it in, you get the tax credit too. Right. So when you trade a car in that's worth $10,000, you don't pay tax on the $10,000 worth of equity that or value of that vehicle towards your next one. So after 5 years, your payment actually comes down to almost where the lease would be. After the 3 years when you go to trade it in. If you wanted to equal the two out, you do a 3-year lease or a 3-year purchase. At the third year, when you trade that car in that you own, your payment goes down because you've got more equity in that vehicle. Right. You owe less than what it's worth, lowering your car payment. It's like you're putting down money. And so by the second time you do that, 6 years down the road, you have a significantly smaller payment than you started out with. As a matter of fact, the payment is equal or smaller than the lease, and you still can get a new car every 3 years. Yeah, so even for those people that think I just want a new car every 3 years, that's fine. Yeah. It's still cheaper to buy.
Talking to Matt Nimey on the Talk of the Town at 100.7 FM WUTQ. I got a speeding ticket one time, Matt. Maybe you can explain a little bit about this. They had put on some tires on my car, but they put a wrong size on, and that can affect the revolutions per minute, I guess, on the car.
It is, but you were probably still speeding because it doesn't throw it off that much. Improper sizement of tires is is common a lot on the trucks and some of the SUVs. People want them to get them off the ground a little bit.
Yeah, they raise them up or whatever.
Oh yeah, and you know it depends on the overall diameter of the tire, but most of the tires that you upgrade on the common cars only change a speedometer by 2 to 3 miles per hour at like 50. So
nice try, Dave.
It didn't happen anytime soon. I wasn't trying to make a plea to the police department, but it was interesting that it can change the revolutions per minute.
Yeah,
which is
it does change.
Yeah.
It changes the diameter, so obviously you should have that adjusted. Most vehicles we can change the tire size on and then adjust the computer to match it. So.
And sticking with tires, I know this is a similar question to what Dave has. Folks that have all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, they may not be aware if they go, okay, I'm just going to get 2 new tires. It's really important to make sure you have the exact same size.
Yeah, we see some expensive repair bills from the people that go out and think they're saving a couple bucks to buy 2 tires on an all-wheel drive car.
Right.
You can't make 4 things that are supposed to turn the same time, the same speed. If you buy 2 different brand tires, sometimes they could be off by a 1/4 inch, a 1/2 inch. And when you stick 2 of those in the back, 2 of those in the front, and driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour, and 2 of them are turning a little slower than the other 2, and it's an all-wheel drive car, well, it doesn't pan out too well because it thinks the car's skidding or slipping, and you've got transfer case and you have traction control pieces that
gears start getting eaten up.
Yeah, they get chewed up pretty good from trying to turn two wheels at a different speed.
Yeah, so that's a good thing to think about. A lot of folks don't realize that. But I got one more question coming in from our text line. This person says they have a 2006 BMW. When should they change the transmission fluid?
You have to go by the spec. It depends on the model of the vehicle. Some of these newer vehicles, especially at the Germans, they want transmission fluid changed at 40,000 miles, 45,000 miles, and others aren't doing it until around 100. And it really depends if you have a CVT or standard shift or automatic.
What's CVT again? I'm sorry.
Constant velocity transmission. It's more like a snowmobile clutch.
Oh, okay, all right.
You don't feel the gears really shift as much as you would a regular transmission with multiple gears. There's no right answer. You have to look at what the manufacturer recommends, and it is important. We're pulling fluid out of some of these cars that's clean as a whistle, and others that are dark and dirty and burned. And those are people that are going over their manufacturer recommendation. Manufacturer spends millions of dollars designing these systems, and when they give you a recommendation, it's because they understand the wear that's going on to that fluid, and they want it changed by this amount of time or this amount of mileage so that your transmission or engine or whatever the fluid is in will last forever. These new cars will last you 400, 500,000 miles, and you just need to fix the things that they tell you to fix. Preventative maintenance is very important.
Yeah.